Imagine for a moment you're the rising star of a hit reality TV show, a show that has full control to shape your story. Imagine if a major network and streaming service released a documentary about you without your participation. Imagine if you were indicted on charges that you maintain complete innocence of. Imagine if every media outlet was dragging your name through the headlines. If someone came to you and offered you the chance to share your own story, would you? That's what we're here for today. You know her and her husband from the hit show, The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, and for the first time, she's telling you her story. My name is Adam Newell, and I'd like to introduce you to Jen Shah.
It's time for all your binge-worthy pop culture news. Welcome to Up and Adam.
Thank you so much for taking the time, to come down here, sit down with me, have this conversation, because a lot of people might not know this, but ever since a lot of the madness, the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City reunion, the arrest, the documentary, you have not been doing any media.
That's right. I have done zero media, no press at all whatsoever. So this is the first time I'm sitting down with somebody, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to, thank you for giving me the opportunity to come here and in a safe environment where I feel very comfortable and to be able to talk to you and tell my story.
I feel honored, so I want to say thank you back. And telling your story and doing so, I kind of want to use this as an opportunity for the viewers and the fans to get to know a side of you, really what I want to call the real Jen Shah. Not the caricature of yourself that we get to see on the show, but who are you really? And right. I think what's important is to maybe start from the beginning. For example, you grew up in Utah, mm-hmm. Mormon, and you're also Polynesian, right?
Right.
And then you went through the process of meeting the love of your life and converting your faith. How was that journey for you from start to, we're covering a lot of time here, but
we're covering a lot of time because I'm not 20 anymore. So
right.
Yeah, we're covering
but
we're
we
covering
need to give some
ground.
Backstory, right?
Right. Growing up here in Utah, that I grew up Mormon, and the dominant religion here is Mormon, and it's more than just the religion, it's also the culture here adopts much of the Mormon religion. I didn't know anything else but being Mormon. That's all I knew. That was how I was raised. That was everybody around me. And, the Mormon church has a lot of very good, solid, strong values, especially with family. So being Polynesian, family is so part of our, family is one of the pillars of the Tongan culture. And so being Tongan, Polynesian, and growing up Mormon, they kind of felt like it went together, It
fit.
Right. And so that's all I knew. I'm the oldest grandchild. I'm the oldest child in my family and the oldest grandchild. And in the Polynesian Tongan culture, a lot of times the oldest grandchild goes to the grandparents. When I was a few weeks old, my grandparents, my mom's parents, flew in and said, okay, we're taking Keiki. My middle name's Keiki Lani. So they're like, we're taking Keiki back to Hawaii with us. And I was in Hawaii. I lived with them probably for right around 5 years. And then my grandmother got ill and was in the hospital for about a month. So that's why I came back here to Utah and to live with my parents. And through the 5 years, I was still very close with my mom and dad. It's just I lived with my grandparents. And, being the oldest, it's a very common thing. I think in our culture, it's so common. This is just a common thing. This is why I always have so many people at my house. This is why, listen, if I could adopt or just have a bunch of babies at my house, I would, because that feels home to me. That's how I grew up.
It's all about family.
Right.
So I have to ask you this too. Obviously, the majority some would say that the majority of people in Utah might be Mormon, right? So in that aspect, you probably felt like you fit in, right? But growing up, since you're talking about diversity, growing up Polynesian, did you ever face any challenges being Polynesian, but also growing up in Utah?
Yes. And, growing up, I honestly, back then it was unheard of, honestly, if somebody wasn't Mormon. Like, I didn't really know anybody that was not Mormon when I was young growing up, because coming back here at 5, when I started, I went to preschool and then started kindergarten here. That was a big adjustment for me, and that is really where I saw a difference, because I felt very comfortable at home in Hawaii, right? I come here and I am treated differently. I'm, the kids are questioning why my skin is dirty. The kids are questioning, why are your lips like that? Where I was like, what are they talking about? Because that never crossed my mind at all. I didn't understand. I didn't feel any different than anybody else when I was in Hawaii. I didn't know I was different until I came back here to Utah. And then I was like, wow, okay, I thought I was normal, but now, every day, and it started when I was in preschool, because my mom would tell me stories, and I'm like, okay, thanks for reminding me about that, Mom. But, she said she was picking me up at preschool, and I came out to the car, and I asked her, I said, Mom, do you know why they're asking me why my lips are different or why my lips are purple? To them, it was just, I was different, right? So these little kids are going to say whatever comes to their mind. And so they were, asking me these, what they felt like were innocent questions because they're curious. But for me, the impact is, wait a minute, why am I so different? I didn't really notice it until I came back full time, around 5 years old, to Utah.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, because I don't think being bullied should be anyone's norm. And, I do want to kind of move on and ask you a little bit about your experience since you are an adult now and you started filming a reality show. But before we go there, how was that journey, and where did it kick off for you converting your faith? Because I think that's a very important part of your story.
Right. Growing up Mormon, I went to the University of Utah in college, which back then also, listen, I went against what you were, I didn't go to Brigham Young University. I went to the University of Utah. And that was like, back then, that was like, oh my gosh, you're going to the University of Utah? Like, not Brigham Young University? That was like a big deal. Like, they have, I think they have alcohol in Salt Lake City. I think there's a thing called cigarettes. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, it was like, oh my gosh, you're stepping outside of, the bubble, and you're going to Salt Lake. So when I went to college, moved to Salt Lake City and was attending college, I met Coach. And through me dating him, I was like, wow, this is like, he's too good to be true. He just embodies every good thing that God put on this earth, and really what got me interested in Islam was his example, because he's just such a good person and his intentions are so pure and he loves wholly and fully. And when I met Coach going to school, I was like, wow, he's pretty much Mormon. Like, if I didn't know he wasn't Muslim, like he could be Mormon. He doesn't drink. He doesn't smoke. He respects women. He's like, wow, he's basically like, what's the difference?
Yeah.
I'm sure my parents are going to go for this, but like, that's really seeing his example and is what started where I really started my spiritual journey to really, start asking questions. And then when we got married, I was pregnant, and then when we had our first son and he was born, I really started thinking about it, because family's so important to me, and I wanted to make the best decision for now that I have children, and what religion do we raise them?
Right.
I didn't want my son to look at me and go, well, Mommy, you're Mormon, but Daddy's Muslim. So Daddy says his religion's the right religion. Mommy, you're saying your religion's the right religion. What's the right religion? Growing up, I had been taught the Mormon church is the only true church. That's what I was taught.
Right.
Now that I'm married to Sharif and he's Muslim, I started looking at things differently. And because of his example, I was like, you know what? Maybe it's not so much about what is the only true church on the face of this earth. Maybe it's about what is the true church and the best church for me, for our family, to raise, the best children that we can. I'm not going against the Mormon church. I'm not saying that that's not the right religion, but it wasn't the right religion for me and for our family, most importantly. And it was very important for me that my husband and I were united on that front, because religion for us, at least our family, is the foundation. And my husband never ever pushed the religion on me, which was very strange for me, because growing up in Utah, listen, I had missionaries knocking on the door. We had missionaries over every Sunday. You were always like, it was in your daily conversation. Oh my gosh, if someone wasn't Mormon, then it was like you needed to convert to Mormonism. And it was a topic, but my husband never pushed it. I would see him doing his prayers. He waited for me to ask him. We were married for 5 years before I actually converted. And the final factor is I did a lot of research. There's a book out there called Between Mormons and Muslims. I read that book. I really tried to do as much, research that I could, because it was important to me. I wanted to make the right decision for my family and for my kids. And that's when I started doing some research also on the Mormon religion. And you would think I was an expert because I'd grown up Mormon, right? And now I'm 20 years old and I should know everything, right? I subscribed to that religion for my whole life up to that point. But then that's when I found out that, because they didn't talk about this stuff at Sunday school growing up. They didn't tell us the bad stuff.
Of course.
Right? They didn't say, oh, by the way, blacks were not allowed to be members of the church until this year, or blacks were not allowed to, once they were accepted into the church, they weren't allowed to hold the priesthood. And I'm like, well, why? Men hold the priesthood. He's a white man holds the priesthood. Why can't a black man hold the priesthood too if they're both Mormons? And I couldn't get any straight answers from anybody. I asked my mom, I said, Mom, is this true? Because when I told Sharif, when we first got married, I thought, okay, well, you can just be Mormon then. And he was like, they didn't allow black people into the Mormon church, Jen, honestly, I did not know that until I had this conversation with my husband. Nobody had told me that. And
so like you said, of course, that's not going to be something that they're screaming from the rooftops, right?
Right. And you really have to, I didn't find out until I had this conversation with my husband and started doing my own research. And when he first told me that, I was like, no, that's not true. And he's like, yeah, no, it is. I'm telling it's a fact. So then I went to my bishop at the time of the Mormon church and, asked him about it. I asked my mom about it. And the answers that I received that's just how it was,
right?
At that time.
And so that was very easy for you to be like, okay, well, this is my family, and if that's how you feel.
I struggled with that the most, and that is, now I have kids. It's not just me marrying, somebody black. Now I have we have our child together, and he's black and Polynesian, but the world looks at him, he's black. When he fills out paperwork and checks the consensus box, he checks African American. That's what he's recognized as here. And so I thought, how do I teach my son and tell him, you need to subscribe wholly to this faith and religion, son? I know that they didn't accept people that look like you, but I need you to believe in this. And I couldn't get over that hump. I couldn't do it. I couldn't look at my son or look at my husband and say, you know what, this is okay. It's okay to, because I knew what that felt like, and it really, it bothered me. It hurt me because I want everybody to be accepted. I know what it's like to be made to feel that you are different, or I know what it feels like where people judge you just based on the color of your skin before they even get to know anything about you. I know what that feels like, and I thought, you know what, I can't do that. I want to raise a family, and I want to raise men that are just like my husband. I want to raise good, Black, strong men that follow and subscribe to a religion that teaches them to be good people.
Which I have to say, this is actually the perfect segue into my next question, because after sitting down with you and having the opportunity to meet your husband and see you both together, it makes sense, right? You can see how much you love each other, and watching you together is, honestly, it's fascinating. It's great to watch, and I can see why it was so easy to cast you on the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, right? Because there's a lot going on. There's many layers. I mean, even you and seeing just the team, meeting, your glam and just what they have to say about you. There's a lot going on in Jen Shah's world.
Jen Shah has a lot going on, yeah.
Jen Shah has a lot going on.
I'm a lot, and there's a lot going on.
Right. So I have to ask you, what was your experience like filming The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City? And also, since it's not just you come as a pack, you have a family, and you just told us how important your family is to you. How did it affect them with you being on the show?
That's a great question. Going into it, it was, going into it and how it affected, I will say, I don't think I've ever talked about this before, but I'm going to keep it 100 with you.
No, we love that.
Okay? I'm going to keep it 100.
We love that.
I lost my father, who is he was like my everything, right? And anybody that knows Polynesians, or if you are Polynesian or come from a Polynesian family's everything, and especially your father and mother. And so when my dad passed away unexpectedly, and he went into the hospital, and I came home early from a business trip, and called up my mom and dad and said, hey, should we have a barbecue? I'm going to be home. And so we had plans to barbecue that weekend. My mom calls me because we were going to barbecue and says, I'm taking dad to the emergency room. And I said, why, what's wrong? And she goes, nothing. He was just getting over pneumonia. He's fine, but he just doesn't feel good. And I just want to make sure. And I was like, oh, okay. So still not expecting that there's a problem, a life-threatening issue. So my dad went in on a Saturday. They admitted him. He passed away the following Saturday. And so I was there with him. I said, okay, Mom, I'm on my way. I'll come meet you at the hospital. So by the time, when I arrived at the hospital on that Saturday, I did not leave the hospital for 7 days. I didn't leave my dad's side, but that's my responsibility as the Fahu and as the oldest daughter. That's where I step in, and I have to take over certain things, make sure my mom's okay. But that's where I come from a big family. We have 6 kids. I'm the oldest of 6. I'm calling my siblings, telling them, I think you should get on a plane, and Dad's doesn't seem to be doing too well. Still didn't know that this was life-threatening. They were trying to figure it out. Right. But when we got the news Thursday morning, I was sleeping in the hotel room, or sleeping in the hospital room. The doctor came in, and now, I'm like, okay, doctor, what is going on? I need to know what's happening, because there's no diagnosis, but I know my dad's not doing well. What's going on? And that's when he told me it was about 6 a.m. Thursday morning, and he said, listen, he has some issues going on with his kidneys and his heart. The issue was, if it was just an isolated, either his kidney or his heart, they could have treated his kidneys. But because it was also his heart, if they treated one, it was going to cause the other organ to fail, and vice versa. So I'm like, okay, well, what are you saying? And he's like, well, what I'm saying is, and they had already tried one surgery during that week to see what they could do. And he's like, well, what I'm saying is that your dad basically, maybe he has like a week, at best maybe 2 weeks. Wait, what? I just came home to have a barbecue with my dad, and now you're telling me he has like he's gonna die?
Is this all at the same time that you're receiving the news that you're about to be on this show?
This is, so why I'm bringing this up is to give you context. This happened probably 5 months before I started going through the process for the show and sizzle reel and all of that stuff.
Oh my God.
So my dad, I got the news at 6 a.m. It's me and my little sister. So my coming from a big family, it's good because, you know, you can like cycle through siblings to come help support. So my sister was there sleeping at the hospital with me. When I got the news from the doctor, my mom wasn't there. So I had to call my mom, tell her that I had just spoke to the doctor, please come to the hospital so I can give you an update. So I had to deliver the news to my mom that Dad probably, he said at best maybe 2 weeks, but I said, he goes, my best guess is though, he probably has like 2 days. He goes, he could surprise us, Jen, and it could be 2 weeks, but he probably has 2 days. This is on Thursday. So then, you know, we had to get in meetings. I asked to meet with every one of his doctors, heart doctor, kidney doctor, everybody, because I wanted to hear directly from them because I had to make a decision. And when I say I had to make the decision, as the FAHU, I had to gather the information, sit down with my family. My siblings flew in. My mom came back to the hospital. I sent her home to get some rest. She came back, and we were in a big conference room, and we had to decide. And I had to tell them, here's all the information I have. And I asked the doctor, I said, listen, if this was your dad, what would you do? And he said, I would let my dad go peacefully. I wouldn't put him through trying to do another surgery on his heart that is probably 95% not going to work, and we have to resuscitate him. And if he comes out of that, Jen, which is not a good chance he will, he said he's going to be worse off than he is right now trying to resuscitate him. And that's when I said, okay. So they moved my dad to the hospice floor in the hospital, and he passed away around 6:30 a.m. Saturday morning. So 2 days from when I got the news, he passed. And I bring that up because of your question, how was it like and how did it impact me and my family? And this is the part that I don't think I've shared before. My family, my husband and my oldest son, they came to me and they said, you know, Mom, are you sure you're okay? Like my son expressed to my husband, I know Mom wants to do this reality show that they've talked to her about, and she's said she's going to do it. Is she emotionally okay right now to do it? Because I was going through the grieving process and still hadn't even identified that I was like going through the grieving process, right? And I was having a hard time. I was very depressed losing my dad. And so my husband asked me that. He said, you know, Sharif Jr., I call him Reefy, he said he's concerned. He's like, is Mom okay emotionally? Because I know how hard this is, you know, been for Mom. And, you know, that's when Sharif looked at me and also said, and I'm worried about you too, Jen. Like, are you okay? And I said, you know what? I need this right now because I need a reason to get up every day and to get in the shower, get dressed. And I need other people counting on me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because if you're counting on me, then of course I got to get glammed. Okay. I got to look cute.
It keeps you busy.
It keeps me busy.
But what a testament to you and your family, the fact that your son even came to your husband and wanted to have this conversation saying, I want to make sure Mom's okay enough to put herself in such a vulnerable situation. Because
Right.
that's exactly what you're doing, right? When you go on reality TV,
Right.
you're putting yourself out there.
Yeah. I mean, did I fully know what I was signing up for at that time? No, I didn't. But I thought, you know what, this is going to, I need a reason to get out of bed right now every morning, you know?
Right.
And when people are counting on me, that's what motivates me. When people need me, they need me, they're counting on me to do something. That's what I've always done. I show up. I don't like letting people down, you know? I don't like disappointing people, which is a good thing, and it's also a bad thing at times too, because I take on too much at times. But so how did it impact my family? I have to be honest with you and tell you, that was a concern going into filming with my family. And I said, no, Mommy needs this right now. And so my family was 110% supportive when I said I need to do this. And it was in a way therapeutic for me when it came to identifying my feelings and going through depression. Like now I can say that. I can say, yes, I've gone through depression. I deal with depression. Do you know how hard it's taken me 49 years to
recognize that?
To recognize it, but just to say it.
And how important though for people to know that you, as much as we see you and you have this, you know, amazing family and this beautiful life, that you have also struggled with depression. And I think that's helpful for people to know. In reality TV, it is like a double-edged sword, right? It does make you address some of your insecurities, but some people might not have been privy to that information.
Right. And then, you know, it was also a journey for me because, you know, at first I was supposed to be taking medication for my depression. And I was like, you know what, I feel good, I'm fine. And there was such a stigma around taking medication for me growing up here in Utah. And so I didn't want to take it. But then finally my husband's, you know, through his love and talking to me and letting me know, babe, this is like taking, when you have a headache, you take Tylenol. When you have this, you know, you're going through depression right now, you take the medication that the doctors prescribed for you. It's okay. And so, you know, all of that came out, all of, you know, my very first year of filming, but it's what was going on in my life. I was, you know, trying to deal with the loss of my dad, deal with the depression, recognizing that that's what I was going through, and then figuring out how to deal with it. And it had, you know, it did it. I think the show has had a big impact on my life, on my family's life. I mean, it's, you know, you're putting your life out there for the rest of the world to scrutinize, to give their input, to, you know.
They'll love you, they'll build you up, and they'll tear you down.
Listen, I have never heard, I remember, you know, my husband told me this because I'm like, oh my gosh, honey, like, I think when the trailer or something came out, I was like, oh my gosh, these people like love me, oh my gosh. Like, and he's like, okay, babe, they might not tomorrow though, and that's just how it is, you know. And he had a lot more.
Coach Shaw always coming in.
He always comes in with those nuggets of knowledge, but he was like, listen, they might love you today and they're going to hate you tomorrow. And he's like, because they all love me when I win a game, and the second we lose the game, they don't like me anymore.
And do you feel like now you've experienced exactly what Coach was?
Absolutely, 100%. I've never seen anything where you can be so loved one day and then completely despised the next. I'm like, whoa, what is it? Without even having to say anything. I'm like, wait, they're getting this off of like a blog or an Instagram page, you know?
Or even seeing, and this is kind of something I wanted to talk to you about, is, you know, we understand that you play a caricature of yourself, right, on the show. And it's all about editing. What's going to make for the best edit? What is going to get those ratings up? What's going to get another season of the show? Mm-hmm. That's how it works, right?
Right. So
you play this caricature of yourself on the show, but I want to know, how does that person that we see on TV, how does that differ from who you are in real life?
Oh, wow. It differs greatly.
Okay, how?
It differs greatly because, you know, I think people need to recognize the show itself is, number one, it's for entertainment purposes and ratings, right?
Right.
Number two, you're watching an hour of, you know, there's 6 or 7 of us, of ladies that on the show, right? They're consolidating pieces of our lives into 1 hour. So they're going to capture 15 minutes of me and my family or me doing this or whatever, and then combine it into a show. So you're not getting the full picture of who I really am. Like you said, you're getting, it's a caricature of Jen Shah. It's not who I am fully. It doesn't show all the sides of me because you simply can't. You can't dump all of that, all 49 years into like
No, you would need your own show.
15 minutes, and so it's a caricature, and it's whatever caricature and edit the editors feel is going to be most entertaining.
And just to kind of go back to what you were saying before about how people can love you one day and then hate you the next, it's really interesting because I truly believe you find out who your friends are and what people are really there for you and who really loves you when you go through those ups and downs.
Absolutely.
Right? And we see you on the show and you might have a moment where you're bonding with one of your, good girlfriends, one of the other housewives, and people are like, wow, we love that side of Jen. And then we see you, splash the camera when you're stuck in a bath and you don't want, you don't want to be there.
A dirty bathtub? Yeah.
Right. A dirty bathtub
with mildew
that you don't want to be
and
in.
rust, yeah.
Okay. So, and then they're like, wow, she might be explosive. So we're getting those little snippets, and it's interesting to me, especially with everything that you're going through. I think now more than ever, you've seen the fans form these very strong opinions about you and your husband and who they think you are. Mm-hmm. And it really does. It blows my mind because everyone who might have been like, I love Jen Shah, she is the breakout star of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City yesterday, might be like, you know what? We don't believe her anymore. We don't want her on the show. We want her gone. And they don't know anything. They know what they're getting.
Right.
An edited version, not the full scope, like you just said.
Right. No, it's not the full scope at all whatsoever. And I think, when you asked your question, how has filming, impacted me and my family, my family was so supportive because our family, when we commit to do something, when we sign up to be part of a team, we show up.
Right.
We give it 110%.
You're literally saying that the Shahs do not sign up to overcommit and underdeliver.
No.
Never.
No.
We
most of the time we over deliver.
Yeah. I love that. That's good for people to know too, So
yeah, and so but I think what was very difficult is when the show came out, and you have to, this was like totally new to us, right? When the show actually came out, it was hard because, I think you have at least I had a perception or anticipation or expectation that, oh, okay, so they're going to show they're going to show me at my dad's grave and all of these moments that I felt were very important, and that kind of explain how I am, why I am the way I am, and really kind of give a good overview of like what I'm going through. And yeah, that's not really what happens. It's just you're at whatever edit they give you and whatever they feel is going to make the best show, which is what I signed up for, right?
You have no control.
Right, I have zero control. And so I think that was one of the things that was most difficult for my family, is seeing and my friends and anybody that knows me, they all had the same reaction. They were like, they know the fun Jen, they know how I am, but they were like, this is not who Jen is. There's so many sides of me. And so to see just one side depicted, like you said, it's a caricature, right?
Right. You literally answered my next question without even knowing that it was here. But that's what I wanted to ask you was, does editing play a role in the person that viewers and fans see on their TV as opposed to the person your friends and family have grown to know? And what's interesting to me was getting to know your husband and meeting the people that you surround yourself with. They all say the same thing. And I sit there and I listen and I kind of digest and I try to take it in. And they are all taken aback by who they see on the show versus who they know in person. And you spend a lot of time, you have a lot of people around you a lot of the time. These are people that you love, they're in your life, you trust them.
They're like my family, especially right now at this point in my life. Anybody that is with me, I consider them family, because the people that have stuck by my side through the last year, those are my real friends.
Right.
And so that's why I call them family too, because they've shown and demonstrated their unconditional love and support for me and their belief in me.
And it's important to have that.
Yeah, especially right now and over the last years, it's more important than ever to have that solid, strong support system, and knowing that, you know what, these people know who I really am and they believe in me, and, you know, that's what helps keep me going every day.
So when we talk about editing playing a role in who the viewers see as opposed to who you are in real life, you know, we've talked about how your friends and your family would say so many different things about you, so many positive things that maybe we don't know about you or get to see on the show. Can you give me a few examples of maybe who you are and who we don't get to see on the show? Because you're a mom, you're a wife, you're a businesswoman.
Right.
There's so much here. There's so many layers.
Right. Like you said, there's so many layers to Jen Shah, and editing does play a huge role in, obviously, in what the viewers see, but it doesn't show who I really am. It doesn't show everything about me. Like, you don't see all the charitable work I'm doing. You know, you don't see me going to the board meetings for the National Tongan American Society. You don't see me at the, you know, the women's right marches. You don't see me doing all of the, you know, Yell Crest anti-racism for the schools that I do. You don't see me, you know, cooking for my kids. You know, listen, I'm by no means a chef, but I make sure I make sure my family has dinner, and that you know, you don't see me like going through those things.
You know, I want to bring Coach Shah out here in a couple of minutes, but I do want to say I really feel at this point in our conversation, it almost feels like if a lens was zoomed in, right? And then you kind of just zoom it out a little bit and you get to see what the entire picture is.
Right.
And I have to say, I'm really proud of you in this conversation, because I feel like we are getting to know who the real Jen Shah is. And the reason that we don't get to always see those other parts of your life and those other dimensions is because it's probably not the most exciting to watch you rub Coach Shah's shoulders on, you know, reality TV, or watch you cook for your family. And who wants that when we can have a bathtub splash moment? And it's so important for people who are at home watching you on TV, who are so invested in your life and your story that they really think that they know to know the full scope.
Yeah.
And it's not just what you see on TV. And not everyone knows that. You would think that they would, but they don't. So I wanted to take a break right here and let you grab some water, and then we'll bring on Coach Shah. But yes, we have a lot more to talk about.
Free Jen Shah because she's innocent. Free Jen Shah because she is not guilty, and you are innocent until proven guilty.